Moriden, Athluan.
Every tale has its dark side, my friends. Even so noble a hero as Moriden did not always help the people.
Do not take this as truth, but there are rumors that he worked for a time for the Thieves Guild of Skyrim.
So sorry to miss the beginning of the evening tale, my friend. What did I miss?
Though none alive would dare to besmirch Moriden's name, the rumors persist. Some claim that he finally fell to greed and avarice. Others, that he was forced into serving their desires.
Oh. Well, of course it would be this part. Should have realized. Not like there's a great deal of my story left to tell.
Despite what seems evidence that cannot be explained away, yet others claim that Moriden became one of the greatest of thieves, not for personal gain, but to once again save the people of Skyrim from the darkest of horrors.
Oh, that's rich. The darkest of horrors. Seriously. The only thing I saved anyone from during that time of my life was the burden of a full purse. The rumors, I'm afraid, are true, my friend.
So, though they are only the darkest of slander, dear listeners, gather round once more and hear the tale of the greatest of thieves.
For it to be slander, it would have to be intentionally wrong. Much of this tale is right, but they won't give you the details. You know how much I enjoy a good tale in a good tavern. So let me save you the pain of listening to the drivel. Far enough from the rest of the people here that I can tell you how it really happened. Because the truth of it... The truth is not what the bards would have you believe. Prologue. I went to Solstheim, seeking peace. I came back, knowing nothing of the kind. Though I had destroyed the ancient Dragonborn Miraak, I had also run afoul of the most dangerous of things in the process: knowledge. In traversing the plane of Apocrypha, the domain of Lord Hermaeus Mora, I had stumbled across something far larger than myself. I still barely know how to describe what I saw or heard. Ithelia. I've never heard the name before she gave it to me, but she claimed that she had brokered a deal between the Daedric Lords and my father, the Herald of Akatosh. I don't know the specifics of that deal, but she has claimed that my destiny has been changed. What it was before and what it is now, I can only speculate. What I do know is what she told me at our final meeting. Seek the shadow. Seek the betrayer, and when it is done, know that my fate is nothing. I hoped it meant that my fate didn't exist, that it was mine to determine. If that was so, then I had to do as she told me. My instructions had been clear enough. Only one Daedric Lord remained who had not interfered in my life: Lord Nocturnal. That, most likely, would mean seeking out the Thieves Guild. But before that, I needed time. Time to think. Time to speak with Aryan. And before that, I had business to attend to in the Rift, where the Explorers Guild awaited my return. 4 Rain's Hand, 4th Era, 202. Rather than spend the evening in Windhelm, I set out a short distance into the wilds before making camp last night. The pelting of rain on my tent woke me early, and I made my way back to Greenwall Cave, where I found the Explorers Guild camp set up and idle. I didn't see Madras anywhere among those in the camp, so figured that he must instead be inside the cave itself. Rather than get into everything that had happened in Solstheim with Aryan, I merely mentioned that we would have a lot to talk about when we got back to Solitude. I wasn't ready to discuss the recent... I'm not even sure if they were revelations, or some kind of sick joke, really. Regardless, I needed more time to process it. So into the cave I went, seeking Madras and the current state of the dig. The status was not much, as it turned out. The nature of the cave I found, that being its mostly vertical nature, was making it hard to get scaffolding to the differing areas of the new cave. There were a few things of note, and a few other areas that were still too remote or dangerous to attempt accessing just yet. The guild would continue to work on the access, which, at least for the moment, did not require my presence. This left me to figure out what to do with my time. I considered going to Whiterun and checking up on the companions, but I had also made it clear before I left that Aella was my voice there. Unless something major arose, she would be able to deal with anything that came up, and since they hadn't contacted me, that meant there was nothing to hear. After a few minutes of thinking, though, I had made a decision. It was time to continue, perhaps complete, what I had started before I left for Solstheim. It was time to expand my political influence to the rest of the province. There were 4 holds yet to claim, and all of them were in the north: Eastmarch, Winterhold, Morthal, and Haffinger. And since I was on the Eastmarch side anyway, I decided to start there. It would turn my stomach helping them out. But once my influence could be brought to bear, perhaps I could start making the changes there that needed doing. It would be a slow, hard battle, but with the Jarl on my side, it could be done. My visit with Jarl Brunwulf Freewinter was an amicable one, which was a pleasant surprise. Yes, I had recommended him, but that had been months ago, and I've noticed a strong streak in most nobles, and I had not done much for him directly in those last few months. Even so, my fame in the hold could not be denied. My work in the city has not, it seems, been forgotten. There was only a single requirement that I had yet to deal with, one thing that kept him from naming me Thane on the spot. 10 minutes later, and about 20,000 septums lighter, I had property within the city and the title of Thane. Oddly enough, they granted me the property where I had once found the Butcher's hideout, Yerum. A serviceable enough place, I suppose, and given its recent history, I can see why none else, not even the Shattershields who had the best claim on it, wanted anything to do with it. So now it is mine, as is the Thanedom. Even better, the Jarl has already been in talks with the Dunmeri locals about renovating and improving the Grey Quarter. I doubt it will ever lose that name, but at least there are efforts being made, deals being agreed on. Eventually, with luck, even the Argonians, who remain barred from the city for their own safety, I am told, at the moment, will be able to walk these streets, not overnight, and I don't expect that. But soon. Perhaps there is hope for this old city after all. Before moving on to Winterhold, there was one other thing for me to look into here. A leftover from my time at Raven Rock, a mystery that made no sense to me then, and even less now. It all relates to this Dunmer called Teldrin Serio, and it led me to a place just on the Skyrim side of the border with Morrowind and Eastmarch. A cellar, wherein I found 2 notes. One, signed by the Jarl of Eastmarch some 20 years ago, in which Serio was declared a free man, his bounty paid in full, but also binding him to the Free Winter family. Not Brunwulf, although his name is mentioned, but to another, Vodin. The second note was from Vodin, and it seems that there was an agreement of some kind between the two, one that seems to be decidedly in Vodin's favor. I get the impression that Teldrin's current situation is a direct result of Vodin's demands, likely blackmail of some kind. Brunwulf would likely know more of this. It seems I was very wrong, or at least not entirely right. Vodin is Brunwulf's brother, and, more relevant in this case, Sigrun's dead husband. The way Brunwulf tells the story, the bounty on Serio is fake, something put out by Sigrun to get Serio back into her hands. In this version, though, Vodin is already dead. Killed by bandits, Serio tracked them down to the cellar I found, and burned the entire place to the ground. He managed to get Vodin's body out and then buried it near Robber's Gorge, of all places. I'll need to look for that when I'm out that way next. The only other lead is another man looking for Serio, and this one I knew. Not well, mind. But I'd been given a few handouts from Sadri from time to time. He knows more of the events, but needs me to clear a refugee graveyard of a vampire or two before he'll talk to me about it. Given how overloaded the guard here is at the moment, I can sympathize. And the graveyard is full of my people. I can take the time, but it will need to be tomorrow. A snowstorm has blown in, and it would be foolish to be out in it as night falls. 5 Rain's Hand, 4th Era, 202. I set out to the graveyard when I woke the next morning, expecting that it would be a quick in-and-out task. When I arrived, though, there were no vampires. Just the grave that I had been told to look at. There was something off about it, and without thinking I touched the headstone as I was examining the oddities. A flash of light, and I was somewhere I had not been in months, somewhere I had never wanted to return to. It was not hard to recognize it, but I had no idea why I would be brought back to the Soul Cairn. My bow came out and I advanced slowly, hoping that there would be some kind of explanation for this entire affair, because if there wasn't, then when I got back to Skyrim, I was going to gut Sadri, no matter how helpful he had been to me in the past. There was a vampire involved, and based on the gargoyles and his own clothing, I would wager he used to belong to Harkin. Not any time recently, though, given that up until now I had believed that Valerica was the only one to find a way to enter the Soul Cairn physically. He would almost have to be from shortly after she vanished. Perhaps he figured out a way to copy what she did, somehow. I'm not sure how he did it without Serana's blood, but, well, I suppose it doesn't matter. He's dead, which should satisfy Sadri. Hopefully. For Sadri's sake. I'm finding I don't have the patience I once did. I told Sadri of the death of the vampire and the cleansing of the graveyard. He said little, and handed me an old journal instead. This at least makes things clearer. though it does contradict some of what I had learned yesterday. The writer makes these claims: that brigands killed others and then desecrated the graveyard, which is near the Free Winter Farm. Rather than try himself, the writer returned to the Corner Club and told what he had found. Serio was there, and on hearing the situation, charged off to deal with it. The investigation afterward made it clear that though Serio did burn the place down, he was clear of the killing of Free Winter's child, a ghost that I neglected to mention earlier as I had no idea that was who I had seen. Nor had he anything to do with Vodun's wife vanishing. He was still imprisoned for the crime, and after Brunolf was made aware of the facts, he paid off the bounty, which still leaves Vodun alive at the time. So what killed him? And where? I do know where the body is, and knowing that he didn't die here in Eastmarch anyhow, makes the Robber's Gorge site make at least somewhat more sense. That remains the only lead now, a confusing tale, but it does at least clear Serio of the bounty notice I found in Solstheim. With that as much dealt with as I can here, I will be heading for Winterhold next. Vodun's body has been buried this long, I doubt that the fools at the Gorge would try to raise him. And if they did, well, that's more reason to kill them all when I get there. A short hop by the Dev Aveza, and I was in Winterhold. Rather than approach the Jarl directly just yet, I decided to meet some of the people, get a better feel for them. True, I had spent some time here, but that was mostly the college itself, not the city. Or what's left of it. I started with Birna, a general goods dealer, and struck gold, so to speak, almost immediately. In a conversation that we had, trading stories of deals gone bad, she mentioned one that had resulted in her being stuck with a useless piece of junk. When she pulled it out, it was almost more than I could do not to jump at it, a claw key. This time in coral. Supposedly it is linked to Invold Barrow, a site on the south side of the White River near Windhelm. Given my experience with these things, that will be worth the delay to anything else I'm doing. But since I am here, perhaps going straight to the Jarl isn't such a bad idea after all. He can hardly be worse than the last one. Well, that went better than expected. Apparently everything I have already done for Winterhold was enough. My fame was more than enough to have me named as Thane on the spot. I didn't even need to buy any property this time. Though I'm not sure that there is any to be had, given the location and terrain of this city. Every Jarl has stressed that the title is mostly honorary. Here, I think it might even be true. My main objective is accomplished, but I decided to visit the college itself while I was here. Almost as soon as I entered the gates, I was told that one Arneal was looking for me. Needed my help, it seems. Not sure why anyone here would want to speak to me at all, but since I am here, I may as well look into it. When I saw him, I remembered who Arneal was. The same stuffy mage I'd been assigned to during the Sarthol dig originally, the one who had sent me off to find something, anything, just to get me out from underfoot. This naturally means we have already started off on the wrong foot, and I have little intention of changing that. Which doesn't mean I didn't listen to his request. He's in the early stages of something, and he's being very secretive about it. To me, that screams thing he should not be doing, which also, in turn, screams thing I want to know about. The first part was simple. All he needed were Dwemer cogs. I made arrangements for 10 of them to be delivered to him from my supplies in Solitude. He'll have them in a few days at most. Once that was done, he sent me looking for Enthir. Some kind of deal was in place between them, and he believes that Enthir is holding out on him. Depending on what this item is, I may just leave Arneal to his own devices instead. I am not a go-between, if I have any choice in it. I am getting so tired of being a broker of deals for others. Enthir, it should be noted here that he is not exactly above board in many of his dealings, reminding me strongly of Bellathor. He has the item that Arniel wants. No deal had been made. Enthir had named his price, Arniel wouldn't pay, end of story. Or it should have been. Enthir's willing to hand it over to me if I go and get a staff from somewhere just outside Markarth and bring it back to him. One staff for one mysterious and unnamed object for Arniel's mysterious and unnamed project. I smell something far bigger than Arniel wants to admit to. I'm not sure if I trust my nose, though. I'll consider it as I continue towards the west. 6 Rain's Hand, 4th Era, 202. I stayed overnight at the college and then boarded the Devaveza and returned to Windhelm the next morning. After a few quick questions, I got a rough location for Ingol Barrow, and then made the ride out into the cold morning air. From the outside, I must admit, it seems a little more intimidating than most Nordic burial sites, but I have little fear of them anymore. Really, not much holds fear for me anymore. Maybe another dragon priest, but I'm more or less certain I've removed all of them from existence at this point, so why bother worrying? Into the ruin I went, looking for a puzzle gate to fit my new key into. Well, this is new. The tomb largely seems to be deserted of even the undead. Instead, there are these glowing blue balls of light, similar to wisps in many regards, but without the floating around and making everything cold bit. They follow me. And where it had been only one at first, there is now 4. The noise they make is not unpleasant, though it is distracting, and I could almost swear that at times they seemed to be trying to lead me forward when I wasn't moving fast enough for their taste. Surely, though, I'm imagining that. There were now 8 of the things, bouncing around everywhere, running into objects, and generally making a nuisance of themselves. Nothing I did could cause them to leave me alone, and so I eventually stopped trying. And that was just before I found the puzzle gate, and, after entering the combination from the claw key, opened the way forward. The balls of light grew agitated and raced ahead, where a rather sizable shade was getting up and beginning to look around. It was comical, really. The lights kept throwing themselves at the shade for some reason, like kittens batting at a full-grown dog. The shade even had the same confused look on its face. Or so I imagined. Then I put a few arrows into it, set it on fire, and claimed a number of artifacts that I am sure Aryan will find absolutely fascinating. To my disappointment, however, there was no word wall. Pity. 7 Rain's Hand, 4th Era, 202. I spent the night on the road, and then made my way to a henge site not far outside of Dragonsbridge. The site, according to one of Sanamia's journals, seems to have a buried or hidden portion to it that bore investigation. After 12 hours of digging, I did find a buried sarcophagus, but there was little that made me think that the time spent was worth it, unfortunately. Once I had cleared out and packed what I did think useful, I began the trip to Solitude. It's been some time since I was there last, and I imagine that the shipments I've been sending need a great deal of sorting and examining. Plus, well, Haffinger is the only hold now that I am not a landed noble in, so it is likely time to try to fix that small issue. 8 Rain's Hand, 4th Era, 202. The time in Solstheim was very profitable for the museum as well. With the materials I sent back, a large number of new displays across cultural, Daedric, and martial topics were able to be created and properly marked. The count I was given was more than 250 new items or displays, a trove indeed. Once that was sorted out, I left the museum and went to see the one Jarl I had yet to address directly. Jarl Elisef the Fair, widow of the former High King of Skyrim, something she may succeed her husband. I have my doubts. She is very young to take that responsibility. Were I to have a say in it, I'd be looking to Balgruf. But that is not my choice. Instead, I was granted an audience with her, and she took some few moments to size me up before she spoke. It was not words of thanks or anything formal. It was a request for help, brought on by her steward's belief that I could be trusted to handle something sensitive. Not what I'd expected, but at least it is a positive measure. With Talos worship still outlawed in the Empire, she had not been able to make a proper offering to Talos when her husband was killed. She knows of a shrine near Whiterun, which she has asked me to go and place a warhorn at, her husband's warhorn, passed down in his family. Simple enough, though I doubt Talos actually cares. On the off chance that I'm wrong, though, I'll deal with it. Vodun Freewinter's tomb was along the way to Markarth, my next stop. Somehow a note had survived the weather, and that note made it clear that Teldrin had not been the one to kill Vodun's child nor his wife. He had been faithful to his patron, which I suppose is to be lauded. Now I simply need to find Sigrun, who obviously is still alive and hunting Serio. Hand in these notes and journals over to her, and then get the entire affair closed out. Not that I care about Sarah one way or another, really. Honestly, I can't think of any reason I'm doing this other than, perhaps, to get my name unassociated with these pirates. I don't need the infamy. My fame is troublesome enough as it is. The stop in Markarth was to look for the staff that Enthia wants in payment. The only thing I had been told was somewhere in the Markarth sewers. This, as it turned out, was correct, though I have serious questions about a few things, like how he knew where it would be, why it would be located in a Dwemer ruin far under Markarth that Calselmo knew nothing about, and, above all, how he could have known about a staff that was in the possession of a Dwemer centurion automaton. That last one especially, I would very much like to know that one. The staff is now mine, for the moment. I'm heading up into the hills above the Karth River Valley, heading once again for Valthum, the last place that Sanamia's journals indicate a dig site might be required to unearth some treasures. The only other journal speaks of some kind of phantom chest, but the only place she saw it personally was at Darkwind Basin. Having been there myself, I never saw anything similar, so perhaps just some fireside story.